talking about lots of vintage things at the moment. Lots of vintage clothes would have a zip in the side, and that zip, if you're doing it a traditional way, would be a lapped zip. So you can replace it with a concealed zip. If you're wanting to go authentically, you would do a lapped zip. So I thought that's what I'd show you today, is how to do a lapped zip. So a lapped zip is where the fabric just a bit like a trouser zip, but much neater. With any zip, like I've mentioned before, the first thing you need to do is cut strips of interfacing to go in the area that where your zip's going to go. So I normally do about 1 inch wide and a little bit longer than the zip, and fuse those on. And then you're going to do you're going to mark where the length of your zip. So I want to put a 6-inch zip here. Now I'm going to use a zip that is longer than the area that we're putting it into, because I know, especially at this time at the moment, we might not have the right size zip. So I want to put a 6-inch zip in here. So 6 inches plus the seam allowance at the top, so 6 inches plus 5/8 there, and I've marked where the bottom of the zip will be, and then I've tacked along the seam allowance to this mark, and then I've machine stitched from this mark down. Okay, so that's all the preparation that you need to do. Once you've done that, you're then going to press open your zip, and again I've just marked where the bottom of the zip needs to go, so that I know where that's going to be. Next thing I'm going to do is place my zip. This is a normal dress zip. I'm going to place the zip. I wanted to get a really long one to demonstrate this really properly, but this is all I had at home here. Now the bottom of the zip is where, if you've got a metal zip, you'd have a big metal piece here. But where the stop of the zip needs to go where your mark is there. And I'm just going to pin it. I'm going to turn this round actually, otherwise I'm going to have my pins in the wrong way for myself. So there we go. I'm going to line up the bottom of the zip there, and make sure your zip is centered over your seam, and just pin it right on the edge there. One thing I forgot to mention is when you're doing a lapped zip, it's always a really good idea to have a much bigger seam allowance than you would normally have. So I've actually done a 2 centimetre seam allowance here, I think. Yes, I have 2 centimetres. So I've made a bigger seam allowance for the seam where my lapped zip is going to go. So I've just pinned that right on the edge. So obviously the zip pull is right out of the way there now. It's hanging over the top. Okay, I'm going to put the zipper foot on the machine. So this is just the traditional zipper foot. You should all have one of these. I'm going to put the zipper foot onto the machine. And when you're putting the foot onto the machine, people often say to me, how do I know which side to put the foot on? Well, always think that the big bulky part of the foot needs to be away from the zip. So I put it on the left hand side here because my zip is on the left. And I want to stitch right on the edge of the zip tape here. I'm going to make my stitch a bit bigger just so that it goes a bit quicker here. Sorry, I mustn't get distracted during a demonstration, especially when Amy's trying to hold the camera still. Yeah, it's quite heavy. Okay, then just stitch the top, and then I'm going to cut the thread. Okay, so that's stitched right on the edge. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is turn the zip back and place the fold, make the fold of the fabric go close to the teeth here. So can you see?
Hard to see the zip actually.
Can you see the zip teeth are here? So I've just folded the zip back. I should have got a different, well, it's the only zip I had, unfortunately. Otherwise I would have used a different colour. Fold the zip back so that the fabric goes, there we go, next to the teeth. Okay, so you have a little bit of folded fabric all the way along here. And now, once that's pinned, I want to stitch close to that folded edge now. So I'm going to go back to the machine and stitch close to that folded edge. Oh, now I'm just going to stop there. I just didn't follow my own rule. So the largest part of the foot needs to be away from the zip. So I need to swap that over. And do that. There we go. There you go. So I hope that makes the rule make more sense now. So I'm stitching right on the edge of the fold all the way up. I hope I am. Okay. Didn't have my wrist pin cushion on today. Okay, so that's stitched in place. Now I'm going to open this up. And what happens when you do that little bit of stitching there, it allows the zip to fall over to the other side, like that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to put a couple of holding pins in, without pinning to my tablecloth. And I want to mark where the bottom of the zip is. And then turn over. And now I want to mark my top stitching line. So I know I want to come straight across here where the bottom of the zip is, there. And let's have a measure of where that pin is. That's probably about 1.5 centimetres, I think, where that pin is. So I'm going to mark, so I'm using a friction pen because I know that'll come off of this calico, but when you're marking on the right side, make sure that whatever you're using is going to come off of your fabric. Okay, so I've marked where I want to do my stitching. I'm going to re-pin from this side. You could tack it if you wanted to as well. I'll make sure I take this pin out of the bottom as well. Now when you're stitching, when you're doing your top stitching, always start stitching here and go across and turn and go up. If you come this way, you might get a little tuck at the bottom here. So we're going to start stitching here and go all the way up. So again, I'm going to make sure the biggest part of my foot is away from the zip. So I'm going to turn the zip onto the other side. Here. I'm going to start stitching in the middle. It's going to go back a bit so I'm right on the seam. And go really slow because I know even though I've gone below the base of the zip there, after some little chunky bits, and the last thing I want to do is live on camera break a needle. I might just do one more stitch there. If you're worried about going into a corner, you're going to be slightly off, you can always raise the needle and then just move the fabric slightly so that you're going to be right in the right place of your corner. Turn around and then come up this line here. There we go. Now you'll see that because I've had the top of the zip out of the way, I haven't had to do any of that worrying about going around the chunky bit at the top. So that's my zip. Let's just trim this thread. I'm now going to take the tacking stitches out. And you know I like to tack by hand because I feel that they come out nice and easily. And then I do it live on and they don't come out easily. No, they come out nice and easily. So there we go, and that is your lapped zip. Now you can have the lap going either way. So what I would suggest now the thing is that you've got a waistband or a facing going on here, so don't trim these bits off until you put your waistband and facing on. But once you've stitched across here, then that's all going to be held in place. You could do a little bit of tacking across the top there if you're worried, but yeah, as long as you don't trim these off until you've put your waistband or facing on, that's all perfectly in place. So there you go, a lapped zip. Do that all make sense?